Hello and welcome to We Women Want. This is our weekly show for women, by women, where we discuss issues that really all women should know about. We discuss issues from body shaming, domestic violence, laws that help women, to even just fashion sense, cancer, health issues. So this is a show that is fast becoming a support group for people. We celebrate the winners and we try and find solutions for those who need. Today I have a very important topic, and this is something that I said earlier that women of any age, every age needs to hear about, needs to focus about and needs to be aware about. We are discussing cervical cancer today. Joining me on the show today is Dr. Jayashree Sundar, Director of Obstetrics and Gynecology at Madhukar Rainbow Hospital. I have Dr. Charanjit Kaur. She's a consultant gynecologist and obstetrician. She practices in South Delhi and is attached to the Apollo Hospital, Cradle, Daffodils and Fortis La Femme. And also joining us is Dr. Neeru Sen. She's an acupressure specialist, naturopathy and panchkarma specialist. Dr. Jayashree Sundar, what exactly is cervical cancer? If you can explain to our viewers. As we know, our government has also announced a vaccination for cervical cancer. So it is something that they are taking very seriously. How seriously should our viewers take it?
Cervical cancer should be taken seriously because it is a thing that needs to be, because we are the largest, 25% of cervical cancers in the world is caused by from India. So that's a huge contribution we are doing.
75,000 Indian women die every year.
So it is around 25% of the total cancer deaths that happen. So whenever we say cervix to a layman, they think that is a cervical vertebra. So that ye cervix idhar hai, why should you talk about cervix here? So I always explain to them, we women have a uterus and it has two parts. There is a body of the womb and there is a neck of the womb, right? Okay. So the neck of the womb is what we call as cervix, and the cervix behaves differently from the body of the womb, right? And the neck of the womb is the part which is exposed when somebody is sexually active, right? So all of us, so when you get sexually active, that is the part which is exposed, and that is the part which has got a lot of dynamic changes of cells, and obviously when it is exposed to sex, you are having many viruses affecting it, and one of the biggest viruses that affects everybody who becomes sexually active. So there should be no taboo about it. Though HPV is sexually transmitted, all women or men even gets HPV virus, and there are 100 types of viruses, right? Of which some of them are very high risk for cervical cancer. So whenever we say cervix, it is actually the neck of the womb which comes in contact when somebody has sex, and it's a part of the uterus, right? So we should be conscious. We doctors keep talking about it. Like I always tell mothers when they come to me, I tell them, if you have daughters, vaccinate them. If women come for in the reproductive age group, when they come for pre-conception counseling, I'll tell them. If they come, if they have a baby with us, we tell them have it after the baby. So every woman should be aware about it, because women, unfortunately, even in our country, even now, don't visit a doctor for a preventive problem. Yes. They only go, maximum women attend doctors when they come to the gynecologist. Some of the young girls are very embarrassed. So many pregnant women are sitting, why am I sitting here? So I think this has been going on in my mind, that we should be talking about adolescent clinics, where the young woman can easily approach the doctor with not so many women being pregnant. We cannot have a common clinics for them. So it is a cancer which has to be dealt with seriously. It is the second largest cancer causing the second largest cancer in our country for women, first being obviously breast cancer, and much more in the rural population than in our urban population, and Uttar Pradesh contributes maximum to it.
Dr. Charanjit, so spoke about a vaccination. What exactly is this vaccination, and is there an age group where you would recommend, and an age group where one should not take that vaccination?
Yeah, so vaccination basically is something which prevents a disease from happening.
Correct.
So it is what is called the primary prevention of any disease. So we are very used to having vaccinations for many illnesses, but childhood vaccinations, the parents are also very keen that their children should be well protected. Again, it comes that this is a vaccination for the adolescents, because this is a disease which comes a little later. And the earliest age group is 9 to 14 years, what has been recommended. And 9 to 14 years, why it has been recommended? Because the response of the body to the vaccine in terms of production of the antibodies is very good, it's robust. And this response to the vaccine decreases with age. So even though the vaccine has been allowed to be given till about 44, 45 years of age, however, the response of the body is not going to be as good as it is going to be in the age group of 9 to 14. So it is very good, important, and that is why the government program also has got that target group, 9 to 14 years, where you require 2 doses of the vaccine, 6 months apart. And the doses we have at the present in the market, of course, are very good, very well researched, and they cover quite a few of the strains of the oncogenic types, the ones which cause cancers. So the one which is now produced in India, which we are very proud to use now, is something which covers the 2 most important oncogenic strains of the virus, which is 16 and 18. It also covers 6 and 11, which is responsible for warts.
Okay. But are there any side effects for?
Side effects of vaccines are very, this vaccine has been out since 2008. So any side effects, any serious side effects, if they were, then it would not still be introduced into global programs. So side effects are very few, just like any injection can cause a side effect of redness, pain. Serious side effects are only a little bit of dizziness and a little bit of fainting attacks, which is a very rare side effect. So really not a very big challenge to giving these vaccines anywhere.
And after taking the vaccination, do I need a pap smear still?
Yes. So a vaccine is something which will prevent a primary prevention. Now, HPV is responsible for approximately 70 to 80% of the cancers. There are other risk factors. So we do not know those risk factors. And then, as we said, the capacity of the body to protect itself is different in everybody. So how much is it protecting you? What is your lifestyle? If you have lifestyle disorders which will make you immunocompromised, maybe if you have HIV or maybe you've had a transplant for any reason and you're taking an immunosuppressants, so then your antibody response is not going to be that good. So then the protection goes down. And so pap smears remain a very important thing to do. And minimum, if you do a pap smear, which is the HPV testing pap smear, even if you do it at the age of 35 and 45, it covers you well enough, provided the previous 2 pap smears were negative for HPV.
Okay.
So if they're positive for HPV, of course, then the schedule changes. Yeah.
Okay, I will go into the treatment later, but I'll come to you also in 2 minutes. The symptoms of cervical cancer, what should one look out for?
So 2-3 things here. So pap smear, so women always think that they don't need a screening. I want to add on to this. Screening is mandatory whether you have been vaccinated or you have not been vaccinated. So the message, take home message should be very clear, because not only 16 and 18 we are protecting against, there are multiple variants of viruses. So even if somebody 51, 56, 33, which also can cause cancer. So all women should be told that they have to get a screening done irrespective of whether they have taken the vaccine or they have not taken the vaccine. So we say that though 9 to 15 is the best, anytime before sexual debut, I mean, before they have a sexual debut, it is very good to take the vaccine. But even if they have had a sexual debut, it is always good to take the vaccine, because even if they have been infected by one of the variants, at least they will be protected by the other variant, right? So all women should be encouraged to take the vaccine, because many people don't want to come to the doctor because they think already I have had a sexual debut, so maybe I am not the right candidate to have it. So it is very important for them to have this vaccine. The number 2 thing is symptoms, right? So whenever we talk about symptoms, so there is an incubation period or a prodromal, pre-cancerous period for this virus. So if you look at it like this, if all women are infected with the viruses, 1% of the population may have a persistent HPV in them, because not everybody will have the HPV. And out of that 1% who are persistent HPV, 1% may progress to cancer. So if you look at the risk, it's not much, but so 1% may have persistent HPV. Out of that 1% may develop cervical cancer. So the idea of screening is to find people between that persistent HPV to the invasive cancer, and that can take 15 to 20 years, not 1 or 2 days, right? It takes 15 to 20 years. So that is the time. What are the symptoms we are looking at?
Symptoms which are visible to us,
so you
not
may
just
have
via the screening.
Yeah. So it is about whether you have a discharge which is atypical, right? If you bleed when you are having sex, or postcoital bleeding is a very common symptom. As I said, the neck of the womb is the part, right? So if you have any ulcer or erosion there, then that might bleed when somebody is having sex. Or it could be that you have intermenstrual bleeding, you're bleeding in between. Or there can be a foul smelling discharge because of the growth of the virus. And many people don't want to go to see the doctor for that. So these are the symptoms which you should be watching out for when we are looking for as symptoms of cervical cancer.
Can these go away on their own, the cancer? What is the treatment?
So it's the very early stages of cancer which can regress. So that is why the moment you get an HPV positive on a pap smear, it is not treated, it is kept under surveillance. Because before the age of 30, 35, many of these changes which come, they're known as CIN 1, 2 and 3. So the CIN 1 can regress on its own. Just a little few changes in lifestyle, yes. Safe sex practices, stopping smoking, better diet and things, they can all contribute to increasing the immunity. And when one increases the immunity, these viruses can be controlled and the pathology can be decreased. But once it crosses the second stage, CIN2 and CIN3, and CIN2 is like it may go this way or it may go this way. And so they need further surveillance. But CIN3 can progress into invasive disease and definitely needs treatment. Above CIN2, treatment is very necessary.
So, Dr. Neeru, the cancer supposing has been diagnosed, then what can you do to help the patient in terms of naturopathy, apart from the other treatments, of course?
Naturopathy is working on the cause of डिसीज
हाँ
तो हमें कॉज पता लगी लेकिन उसके पीछे बहुत सारे सिम्टम्स आते हैं लाइक डिस्चार्ज, जैसे कि मैम ने बताया, डिस्चार्ज होता है, ब्लीडिंग होती है, स्पॉटिंग्स होती है, या फिर उसकी जो लाइफस्टाइल है उसमें अगर एक से ज़्यादा लोगों के साथ अगर वो फिजिकली रिलेशन है, उन सब सिनेरियोज को हम लोग पहले वॉच आउट करते हैं. वो वॉच आउट होने के बाद में जो कॉज देखी जाती है एज पर एक्यूप्रेशर, जो लोग एक्यूप्रेशर नोन है और दे आर मच अवेयर अबाउट इट कि हम लोग बॉडी एनर्जी पे काम करते हैं. हाँ. और बॉडी एनर्जी जो है वो आपकी ड्राइनेस है या हॉटनेस है या वहाँ पे इन्फेक्शन है, वो सिम्टम्स बताता है. उस सिम्टम्स के बेस हम लोग काम करते हैं. और क्योंकि यूट्रस इज कनेक्टेड विद द स्पाइन, और स्पाइन को हम लोग जो इंट्रोड्यूस कराते हैं वो ट्रिपल वार्मर से कराते हैं. तो ट्रिपल वार्मर अगर वहाँ पर बहुत ज़्यादा हॉटनेस की वजह से इन्फेक्शन हुआ है, दाने हो गए, या वहाँ की स्किन जो है वो फूल रही है, ब्लीड कर रही है, तो इन सब सिनेरियोज के अंदर हम लोग वहाँ की हॉटनेस को कम करते हैं, जो कि मैग्नेट्स के थ्रू किया जाता है. तो वो एज पर पेशेंट कंडीशन एंड एज पर द डिसीज कंडीशन ऑफ द डिसीज़, उनके बेस पे वो ट्रीटमेंट दिया जाता है कि हॉटनेस को कम करना है या फिर हमें वहाँ पे ड्राइनेस को बढ़ाना है. वो सब चीज़ों को हम उस तरीके से देखते हैं. एंड सेकेंड थिंग, बहुत बार ये भी होता है, जैसे कि मैम ने बताया 4 स्टेजेस होती हैं. फर्स्ट स्टेज में अगर हम लोग को डायग्नोज करते हैं तो सिंपली ट्रीटमेंट, मेडिसिन हो गई, बाकी चीज़ें हो गई, उनसे वो ट्रीट करते हैं. लेकिन एज पर एक्यूप्रेशर जब जैसे जैसे कॉज उसकी जो पोजीशन है वो बढ़ने लगती है, स्टेज बढ़ने लगती है कैंसर की, उस सिनेरियो के अंदर हम लोग जो है वो ये देखते हैं कि वहाँ पे कोई गांठ तो नहीं बन रही. अगर वहाँ गांठ बन रही है तो वहाँ पे एनर्जी जो है वो ड्राइनेस एनर्जी एक्सेस हो गई है, तो उसको कम करते हैं. और वो सारा मैग्नेट के थ्रू चलता है और वो रेगुलर ट्रीटमेंट है, थोड़ा लंबे टाइम तक चलने वाला होता है. इसके अलावा आयुर्वेदा की जब हम लोग बात करते हैं तो वहाँ पे बहुत सारी ऐसी हर्ब्स हैं जिससे कि डूज दिया जाता है, या उसमें हिप बात देते हैं, या डायरेक्ट जो है कॉटन से पर्टिकुलर पार्ट प्राइवेट एरिया की सिकाई करवा करके जो सिम्टम्स आ रहे हैं, अगर वहाँ पे कोई ल्यूकोरिया की प्रॉब्लम है, ब्लीडिंग की प्रॉब्लम है, तो इन सिनेरियोज के अंदर उन ट्रीटमेंट्स को दे करके बहुत इजीली वो ट्रीटमेंट्स जो लक्षण वहाँ पे जो सिम्टम्स देखे जा रहे हैं उनको कम किया जा सकता है, जिससे कि काफ़ी हद तक चांसेस होते हैं उसको रिकवर होने के.
Okay, I'm going to take a break and I'm going to come back and talk a bit more about the preventives really, what can one do, what all should be looking for, how often do you need the pap smear, just things, basic things that we all need to keep in mind. So after a short break. Hello and welcome back to We Women Want. Today we are focusing on cervical cancer. We discussed in terms of how it is prevalent and all, but in terms of preventives, what else can you say? Dr. Kaur has told us something, but some more, if you'd like to add.
So preventive,
and what should one look out for, and who's more at risk?
So preventive, obviously vaccination now, which we didn't have when we were young children, right? So definitely vaccination of all. So if we vaccinate 90% of the adolescents, we are going to prevent cancer in a very
one
big
question.
way.
Supposing people have missed the vaccination boat, can they take it now at 50s, 60s?
No, so the window period is till 45. For the Indian vaccine that has come out, it is only till 25, right? So we cannot go. I mean, at 45, it will really, after 45, it doesn't make a big difference whether you vaccinate or not, right?
Okay.
And as we said, after 45, if you're not HPV positive, it is very unlikely that you are the candidate for cervical cancer, though the screening is till the age of 65. Right.
Okay.
So the two things is, so prevention, obviously a good lifestyle. So delaying child marriages, why is it more common in the rural areas? Because our tissues are also growing when we are 12, 13, 14. So when adolescents have sex, right? So obviously you are exposing the changing tissues to HPV, which increases the risk of cancer. So delaying the age of sex, that's why I think the legal marriage should be above 18. So that avoiding smoking, which is becoming more commoner in women than it was before. Smoking is a big risk factor. I would like to say this with caution, responsibly, because having multiple sexual partners also increases the risk of cervical cancer, because obviously which virus affects you, you don't know. But people should not, when they go to the doctor, they should not think that they will be judged that they have multiple sexual partners when they have because it becomes a challenge when it comes from us, that having multiple sexual partners, or they start doubting their partners. If we say, if the partner has multiple sexual partners, you don't want to create a matrimonial disharmony being a doctor, right? So, but they are the ones who are at higher risk, right? But it's not necessary that that can be the reason, because there are a lot of rural women who get this cancer, I mean, for that. So, and then the body immunity. So, if somebody is HIV positive, they should be screened more than the other population, because then they're immunodeficient, their risk of cancer goes up. So, these are the risk factors which we should be, these are the factors which we should be working on to prevent cervical cancer.
So there's a strategy, 90, 70, 90. That's what is the global strategy. And wherever you want to control any disease, so like for example, now this cervical cancer, there's been a global call from the WHO that control this. We must control this. So 77,000 women who die, we must control this, and the goal is to make it 4 per 1 lakh women by the year to 2030. So how do we go about it? Is 90, 70, 90. 90 is primary prevention. Vaccination. Vaccination is the primary prevention. You've not started sex, children 9 to 14. Give them the vaccine. Increase their immunities so that the virus does not, have the harmful effects. 70 is that secondary prevention. Secondary prevention means screen, and screen. No woman, 70% of the population of women should be screened for HPV by the age of 35 minimum. मतलब तो होना ही चाहिए. And again by 45, again another screening.
Okay.
So this is a must. If we adhere to these, and if we have the infrastructure which can do this 90, 70, and what is the last 90 is the tertiary prevention. We have screened, we have found this infection, we have found some disease, make it accessible. Treatment should be accessible. So good treatment, accessible treatment. अब woman को screen कर दिया, positive निकल गया, छोड़ दिया, नहीं follow किया, doesn't make any improvement in the situation.
Correct.
So treat, screen and treat at the same time is now the new mantra. Screen and treat.
What is the treatment? Is it the same as any other cancer, chemotherapy, radiology?
Yeah. So in the early stages, it is basically local ablations. Local. Now, there are parts of the world in which it was just acetic acid screening because there was no pap smear done, nothing, no laboratories, no way they could send. So they used acetic acid vinegar. So vinegar, 5% vinegar, they used that, they saw suspicious lesions and they burnt the entire thing. Just local burning. Very easily done. 5-minute, 7-minute job. You know that woman is not going to come to you. The area is such, interiors hain. they cannot come to primary health centers again and again. So you treat it, screen and treat.
Okay.
In the urban areas, there is screen, diagnose and treat.
Okay.
So in the screening, you find suspicion, call them again, biopsies, then local. Till CIN3, we have local treatments in which the person does not lose their ability to reproduce, they do not lose their libidos, there is no change in their life, just that local treatment has been done and they have to go on going for follow-ups. But as the disease progresses, then this disease can progress to the bladder, rectum, sides, ureters. So then it becomes a problem. Then the surgeries become very aggressive and then comes the need for chemotherapy and radiotherapy. And then once it starts spreading, it's a quick spread. And then we are only left with supportive treatment at the end of it. So that is why everyone is so keen that prevention should be done. And so you save so many families. One woman who gets this cancer, and this cancer comes peak in 40 to 60 years. She's at the peak of her life. She's managing her children, her family, everything. And so the entire thing goes, there's so much trauma involved. So if we can prevent primary and secondary and treat properly, I think a lot of, tragic consequences can be prevented.
So just be more proactive. In terms of treatment, what would you like to?
So the first thing is, nobody should think removing the uterus is an answer to. So there are many women who come, I am HPV positive, I have completed my family, do a hysterectomy for me. That's not a treatment for cervical cancer or the precancerous lesion. As Dr. Jaranjit said, it should be step-based, right? Because the HPV which affects our cervix can affect our vagina and our vulva also. So then you don't remove the vagina and vulva, right? The treatment has to be more pointed. See and treat should be the goal. Even in our setups, if we find somebody HPV positive and we take them up for looking at the cervix under visualization, you treat it immediately. We can either burn that area or we can do a cryo freezing of that area and keep that woman as per protocol in a follow-up. So it is very mandatory that these women should not be lost to follow-up. And about the screening aspect, I think we are now having self-testing devices available now. So women don't need to really go to the hospital to get it tested, and just it is Colosba that's come. The woman can insert and do her own HPV testing and send it for testing. So she can know that whether she is HPV positive or is not HPV positive. So the treatment becomes very aggressive as we go further on. It involves brachytherapy, that is you do local radiation. So the life doesn't remain the same anymore. And cervical cancer's 5-year survival, if early treatment is done, is much better. But once they reach 2B, 3C, then it becomes really very bad, right? So it is very important that we treat the pre-cancer, the window period I was talking about, the 15 to 20 years that you get before she turns to invasive cancer is the time we should be treating and catching all these women. So it's very important to screen women, right?
Is the thing. Would you like to add something on the treatment part of it? One you told was magnet therapy. There's some foods that you suggest for people, Ayurveda talks a lot about the intake that would help.
इसमें त्रिफला is a very effective because उसमें त्रिदोष नाशक है. तो as per आयुर्वेदा अगर मैं बात करूँ पंचकर्मा में हम लोग क्या करते हैं, त्रिफला को पानी में बॉईल करते हैं और सहने लायक, यानी बहुत ज़्यादा गर्म नहीं, बहुत ज़्यादा ठंडा नहीं, लुकवार्म वाटर के अंदर पेशेंट को बैठने के लिए बोलते हैं, जिससे विजाइनल पार्ट जो है जहाँ भी इन्फेक्शन है उसको रिड्यूस करने में वो बहुत अच्छा रिजल्ट देता है. नेचुरोपैथी इज़ ऑल्सो यूजिंग सम काइंड ऑफ हर्ब्स. और इसके अलावा आपकी डाइट जो है इट शुड बी जस्ट लाइक अ ऑर्गन क्लॉक. मतलब ये नया वर्ड नहीं है, मैनी लॉट ऑफ पीपल्स आर अवेयर अबाउट ऑर्गन क्लॉक. मीन्स आपके खाने का टाइम जो है वो इस तरीके से आपको मैनेज करना चाहिए कि आपको गैस्ट्रिक ना हो, आपको हैवीनेस फील ना हो, लेजीनेस ना आए आपकी बॉडी में, आप एक्टिव फील करें. और आपका जो मेंस्ट्रुअल साइकिल है उस पर आप खासतौर से फोकस करें, क्योंकि क्या होता है कि मेंस्ट्रुअल साइकिल स्टॉप होने के बाद जो ब्लीडिंग हो रही है या जो स्पॉटिंग आ रही है, उसके लिए महिलाएं जो हैं, फीमेल्स आर मच कॉन्शियस कि ऐसा हो रहा है, लेकिन हम डॉक्टर तक जाने की कोशिश नहीं करते. वो लापरवाही जो है उसे अवॉइड करें, सबसे मेन चीज़. एंड एक चीज़ मैं जो पर्सनल लेवल पे शेयर करना चाहूँगी, जो हमारे ऑडियंस हम लोगों के साथ हमें देख रहे हैं, कि पुराने टाइम की अगर हम बात करें, हम नेचर के बहुत पास रहते थे और उस टाइम पे मतलब हमारी जो सीनियर्स हमारे मेरे साथ हैं, आपने देखा होगा कि पहले महिलाएं कार्तिक मास में स्नान करती थी, और वो जो बात होता था वो सुबह सुबह अर्ली मॉर्निंग के टाइम में होता था और ठंडे पानी से होता था. इट्स वेरी इफेक्टिव ऑन आवर यूट्रस जेनिटल ऑर्गन्स, क्योंकि हॉट एंड कोल्ड फॉर्मेंटेशन हम लोग नेचुरोपैथी में भी देते हैं, गर्म ठंडा सेक हम लोग आयुर्वेदा में भी देते हैं, पंचकर्मा इज ऑल्सो यूजिंग दिस. और आज के टाइम में हम सबसे पहले गीजर का बटन ऑन करते हैं. तो आई थिंक सो फीमेल्स को कार्तिक मास में स्नान जरूर करना चाहिए, एंड इट्स वेरी इफेक्टिव ट्रीटमेंट फॉर फीमेल्स कि उनके जेनिटल ऑर्गन से रिलेटेड जितनी भी प्रॉब्लम्स आ रही हैं वो प्रॉब्लम्स काफ़ी हद तक इस बात से ही ठीक हो जाती हैं. तो ये सब चीज़ें यूज़ कर सकते हैं. इसके अलावा जो स्पॉटिंग आ रही है टाइम टू टाइम, जो ब्लीड हो रहा है कि पीरियड्स स्टॉप हो गए हैं, नॉर्मल ब्लीडिंग हुई, लेकिन उसके बाद भी आप 5 दिन के बाद या 15 दिन तक कंटिन्यू, उस सिनेरियो के अंदर यू कैन यूज़ 5 फ्लावर्स ऑफ आपका अनार के 5 फूल ले लीजिए, पेड़ पे आराम से इजीली मिल जाते हैं, मार्केट में सूखे भी मिलते हैं. उसकी आप चटनी बनाइए. कूजा मिश्री, जो कि धागे वाली मिश्री जिसको नॉर्मल लोग हम लोग यूज़ करते हैं, वो कूजा मिश्री आप उसमें टेस्ट के अनुसार मिक्स कीजिए, थोड़ा सा पानी मिक्स करके वो पेस्ट जो बनेगा उसे आप इंटेक करना शुरू कीजिए, क्योंकि वो तासीर में ठंडा होता है, ब्लीडिंग को स्टॉप करने में बहुत अच्छा रिजल्ट देता है. तो वी कैन यूज दैट. इट्स अ नेचुरल ट्रीटमेंट.
And all that after she has screened herself for cervical cancer, right? And her HPV testing has been done.
Yeah. So don't disregard the testing. Don't disregard the process. And then of course all medicines and all helps is good. But on that note, I mean thank you for joining us on this show, and we'll see you again same time next week.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.